Hello there. So today I'm continuing work on the rogo workflow. Kind of noisy here, so I have my headphones on. And my main goal here today is pretty much the last major piece is rogo test. So rogo test is a command that you run that looks at all the tests in the database, runs the input lines through your program, and then checks if the output lines correspond to those inputs. And that works now. But what's missing is that now the change that we're making is that we have the server and we're able to fetch the test from the server. So yesterday I implemented rogo next, which fetches the next test or batch of tests from the server, and now I can pass them. So I have my program here. The goal is to say rogo show. You can see what the test is. The test is to quit. So the input is just, actually this probably should show some of the input, but the input is the Q command, and then the output should be nothing. So it should just quit the program. And so basically you don't have to do anything to implement that. And so that test is passed. And so what I want to do now is say rogo next. But what the server says is that, oh, I don't know anything about, you haven't told me that you've passed any tests, or I don't know that you've passed any tests. So I'm going to send you back the first test. And so it says you already have the next test. And that's the idea here, is that I need to actually tell the server that I passed the test. And that, of course, introduces the questions of honesty and cheating and whatnot. And also, maybe the case might be that, like right now, that the test code that I have, the test scripts that I have all used this model where you have a fixed input and then that leads to a fixed output. But the specifications could be a little more general than that. For example, I've been using the example of the Tetris building thing, and that in Tetris you make a queue of the 5 or the 7 tetraminos, and you have to shuffle them in some order. So any permutation, and there's like, I think 5,040 different permutations. So any one of those could be valid, and you might generate one randomly each time. So it makes sense to have like a program that does that. So that the program needs to be in the test script. And so instead of just looking at the output lines and validating them, then we need to have a test script that can do it. Right now, I am thinking of doing that by creating a little sandbox, because you don't want some malicious, teacher. If we ever open this up to like letting other people create tests for each other, challenges for each other, which I think is something that is very, very possible, then you don't want them running arbitrary code on your machine to test the test. But you also don't want, the goal here is that you. So here's the plan, right? The server has a program, let's look at the database. The server has this notion of the same database is on the client and the server, but you have different data in it. So the server has all data about all the users. You only have data about the usernames that, for servers you're logged into. The server has data about one server. The users have information about any server they connect to. So the server has a list of challenges. The user chooses a challenge to start, and now they have an attempt at that thing. So that's the playthrough. All right, and so this is like this is your save state, right? You have a list of save slots or whatever, and you could make, excuse me. For example, I'll probably make several implementations of LearnTrus in J and Smalltalk and so on. And so each one of those would be a separate attempt. All right, so then the challenges have numbers of tests. And right now we have challenge ID, the name of the test, the head, and the body. This is the name io.q. This is the head, and this is the body. And then there's what's not being shown here is the input lines and the output lines. So the input lines and the expected output. And I think right now this is like hard-coded input, and this is hard-coded output. So I can load up an example here. Learn tris test plan. So the very first test is this Q one where we quit, and it doesn't have any input or output, but the next one has input. So you get so ignoring the hash or the comment lines, everything after here is comment. So you get this grid of dots, and then you type Q. So the input is P. Sorry, the input is P, and then your program is meant to print out this grid of dots. So the 22 lines and the 10 columns of the matrix. Okay, and so this gets translated into the input lines are P and Q, print and quit. And so print, so this character P, new line, Q, new line, and then the output, the O lines, that is what you want, and that should be 22 lines, or 22 lines of these dots, and then we ignore the white space at trailing and at the end. And so that's the protocol. But again, like, what do you put for the the permutation thing? You need a program to check it, and so this would have to be replaced by some new format that allows you to have a more, a dynamic thing. And so now, I, as the author of this program, right. So I was getting back to this point. The validator is going to run on the server the first time you run the test, or the first time you try to pass the test. And then I thought, well, okay, now once you pass the test, I will give you the answer, or you can just cache your answer. You can remember your answer, and that way you can look at your list of known good answers. If the server said, "Yep, that's a good answer," then you don't have to ask the server anymore, and so the client doesn't have to do that. Otherwise, instead of n tests, we'd have n squared divided by 2. You would have, first you'd send 1 test, then you'd send 2 tests, then you send 3 tests, and that's not good. So the idea is now that we will send back the I lines, or we will send back a test result, and then you can use that test result. If the test result is good, and that's one thing. If the test result is bad, it'll tell you either, no, this is bad, or here, right now what it does is it will actually give you a diff between what you gave it and what it expected. So like in this particular case, we probably do want to show what the output should be, right? Because you're writing this to a spec, right? So you have to know what to output. You can't just guess at this. This is not a puzzle. It's a specification. But sometimes the specification could be much broader than just a specific output. I mean, it could be like, write a function that does something, and then you have to test whether that function actually does the thing. So we need the test case to be smart. And in some cases, it's going to be very simple like this. And in some cases in the future, especially like when I get to the next part, when I flesh out this learn tris and I actually get to that shuffling the deck and, do some other things that are coming up, it needs to be a program. And so when that happens, you could be generating random stuff on your machine, and we don't want, so again, for the permutations, you don't want to send all 50 or 5,040 possible permutations because you get a different one each time. So we could tell you, okay, make a random check, make a random seed, and then you always use the same seed. But I can't make you do that. I can't force you to do that. So the protocol needs to be adaptable to that. And so I don't wind up with, say this becomes widely popular. I have 1 million users who all send for whatever reason, they just want to like fuzz test their thing. And so they send 50,000 requests, 5,000 requests each, or 50,000 requests each. And, until they get all the 5,040 different permutations validated, right? That doesn't make any sense. So better to have a validation rule. You pass the test once, so then you get back as a reward, you get a rule for checking that test. And it might be this string matches exactly, just like the current behavior, or it might be like a program. Right, so once we get the program, now we have a piece of code that runs on the server. Now we can protect that. That means an author who might not be me, who might, or he, I might do something stupid, could make something that potentially harms the server, right? So you have to sandbox it. And I have a solution for that. I'm making a virtual machine. In fact, the very first course after LearnTris, or the second course maybe, is going to be about making this virtual machine. And so the virtual machine will then live inside of Rogo and then on the client and the server. That's my solution. The virtual machine can be sandboxed because you just don't give it access to do things that it might not be, you wouldn't want it to do. And yeah, you give it access to things that you wouldn't want it to do, or only the things that you would want it to do. And you can run it locally, or you can run it on the server. And then in both cases, probably we'll have a way to stop it. But on your local machine, like you might want it to run overnight or something like that. But on the server, you would definitely want it to run to be very limited, have a budget in how many. So it only be configured to allow executing so many operations for the test. So that's the plan. I'm not there yet because I haven't fully specified the virtual machine. Although, if you go to my B4 repository, and it's from B4 on GitHub, somewhere in here is a test plan. b4test.org, and we have some amount of tests for creating a debugger and stepping through it and all this stuff. So I actually have, like here you're inspecting some RAM and disassembling the RAM and whatnot, loading a byte, writing a byte. I don't have a full test suite for it, but I have a pretty decent test suite for it. Right. So anyway, that's the protocol. Protocol is server tests it using a virtual machine. In the future, right now, for today, it's just going to do what the normal test is. It sends back a rule for validating it. And I was thinking, do I need to code that right now? Like, what's going to happen when I switch this? I don't know. Right, but the idea is that the server will send you back a result saying yes, it's passed, or yes, it did, or no, it didn't. This also gives you a different ability, which is, right now, the reason you download one test at a time or one group of tests at a time is that now you'll have the ability to choose which tests you're going to download. And so it might not be as simple as a linear flow of these things. It could be something more like, a branching structure or something. You choose your own adventure, and if you make one choice, you go down one path, you make another choice, you go down another path or something like that. Like it could even ask you a question: do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And you send your response as an answer to a test, and then now it or I don't know, somehow you communicate with the server and you make a choice. So that's the idea here. I don't know. I don't really have a test that uses that, but I'm giving myself the option by doing this. And like I said, also, it makes it slightly harder to cheat, I think. Again, you're never going to be cheating anyone but yourself, but even so, people will try it, I think. If you give them a chance, people will rob themselves of the opportunity to learn. We know that from gaming, If you incentivize the wrong thing, so I want to be careful not to incentivize, try to just get as many test passes as you can, because that would be easy. But it becomes less easier when the spec becomes, a little more whatever. Anyway, I'm done talking about that. Let's do it. Let's implement this. All right. So like I said, rogo run, rogo test. Wow. It says all one test pass. So what happened here is in rogo, we have the runner. And this is some kind of gnarly code, I guess. We can collapse all this. I apologize. I am very under the weather. Just coughing up gross stuff. Okay, so how do I see the way to view? Holding. Collapse all. Control Shift Numpad minus. Okay, I won't remember that. All right, so this right here is what is doing the work. So this is correct. It fetches from the database. It fetches all the currently known tests, like in this format, and it converts them to a test description object. So it's just that same, all those fields. Oops. And then close some of this stuff. And so that is the get challenge. Where is get challenge called? Right here in run tests. All right, so we have a thing to run a single test. That's this right here. And here is the actual core of the test, line 113. This is what's saying if the actual output, so we strip the blank lines and we strip all the lines, probably should R strip the line in case we want to test indenting or something like that. But basically strip the trailing white space on each line and strip trailing lines. This is the strip trailing lines part. And then I'm pretty sure I rewrote this as the word chomp somewhere. And then we have this test, right? So actually it's just this. My expectation is that this is what we should do. So we should say let's see. I'm gonna extract it. So let's call this print diff. So we have a little bit, and we need. I can just extract this, can I? I can use the refactor. So, refactor, extract method. It's not a method. It's a class. I mean, it's a function. But we'll call it whatever that line says. Output mismatch. And so it looks like it only needs those two things. And there we go. So sorry, that's so gross. Yuck. Anyway, and let's call this cleanup input. So actual and let's refactor this by extracting another method, refactor, extract method. And we'll call this cleanup output, clean output. Big. Skip lines, yeah, okay. We do need the actual and the config. Actually, I would probably switch those. So actual is a list of strings. And it returns a new list of strings. And the config is a config. You don't need to say that, but it's just kind of nice to document what you're doing, I think. And sometimes it's nice to think through what you're doing by using types. Okay. And I think we're even going to call this check output because versus test description. All right. And the reason is this is about to get a lot more complicated. All right. So if we don't know the answer, if test O lines is none. This is not a case that actually happens right now, but I think we're about to make that happen with the next time I do rogo next, I'm going to have it download none. And so in fact in here, I can just do that right now. Rogo next. So do it jump to one of them. Next test for attempt. For row, how about rows equals and then we're going to say for row in rows, row O lines equals none. And this is what this will hide the answers for now. You don't see the answers until you're ready. Okay. Suppose I should test that, but I'm gonna write myself a note to test that. So if I test the attempts, so you're gonna browse your attempts on server. So that's the front end stuff, which we're gonna get to in just a minute. It's like as soon as I get this running, the idea is that you're gonna be once this flow works, you're gonna start looking at the server instead of the client, because eventually I'm going to give you an environment, a dev environment. You won't even need your own dev environment unless you absolutely want to. Running the client locally is always an escape hatch. Right? You're going to be able to do this no matter what, but you won't have to for a lot of languages. All right, so in the runner is none. So now we're going to say we do need a config here. And the reason is well, I need to talk to the server, right? And the server needs to know your JWT, which is in your, who am I? Oh no, you don't. But it needs to know the attempt. It needs to know what attempt you're looking at. Because from the database, we know who you are, but we don't know what you're working on until we know what directory we're in, and we get this attempt code. The attempt code is like a little, where is it? In your .rogo file. Like over here, we don't have an attempt code. Over here, we have an attempt code for this. So in this little directory, I'm working through whatever this is. And ideally, there'd be a command called rogo status that would tell you, parse this and tell you what you're actually working on, and what the URL is for that, which I believe is on my to-do list here somewhere. And so we would go back to rogo. No, launch is what it's called. Yeah, rogo status is right here. I figured that could wait. All right, so run all tests against known good O lines. So that actually works. And there's no issue with like types when we're comparing against. Oh, we don't actually have to do this. So this is that line. Run each test against known good lines. But we actually run up to the level to the regression. So if any of them fail, then we do something. But we expect the last one to fail, but it could be, you could break something in one of the previous tests failed. All right, so we're going to say check output. Right, so we need a client. So this is where we need to do the client. So we need to say client.py. Is it rogo client? Yeah, it is rogo client. Oops. Come back here. Man, what's wrong with this? Right, that's actually a valid point because this used to be the doc string for the module. Now it's not the doc string, so this needs to go up above. I totally agree with that. Runner test running logic for the rogo command line for the local rogo test runner. I guess it's also going to be the remote test runner, isn't it, for validating rogo tests, because we're going to have This is more like we should call this like local check. What's wrong with this? Oh, I got it. Implement import rogo client. Dot client import rogo client. So we should call this local check output. Run test locally. Run test. So local. Oops. Shift F6. Local check. Local check output. And then we will call the remote check output. Again, so I'm thinking this. Like this right now is like the only check. The only test result is a diff. And if the diff is empty, then you win, right? But, you know, we test equality, and then if you know, then you win, and so then that implies that the diff would be equal or empty. There's no diff. Right, if we say if actual equals this, then return, just return. All right, so now we know they're different. We know there's a mismatch. But if it's because that's none, do we ever want to do this? I don't think we ever do this. I don't think we ever do the output mismatch thing. Instead, what we do so what's going to happen here? We're going to have there's several cases. One is we don't we may or may not it may be because we don't know the answer. It may be because we haven't been told the answer yet. And that's this case. Elif else No, but that's not this case. That's something else. Ask. So here we're going to ask server pass to do ask server. Ask server for answer. Ask server to validate. If test O lines is none, ask server to validate. But this is wrong. This is like if it's more like if test check answer actual, then return success. We'll do this the first way. So we always check if the answer is none, if test O lines is none, then we always ask the server to validate. Otherwise, we check the answer locally. Okay, so it's like res test result. T-res equals a type test result is equals remote validate, remote check with server. So how about like check with server? If test has key, not key, but has if test can if how about I guess right. So if we know how to check, if we have the answer, if we have the answer, then check the actual else. Test check answer actual. T-res, the result is that. All right, so if we have an answer, then check the answer else. Check with the server. Which is something we haven't written yet, so we have to write this function check with server. Okay. T-res, and this is a test result. So we don't know what a test result is yet. We're gonna have to make one. I guess it's a. I don't know what it is yet. I don't think it's a data class yet. Test result. It's more like there's several of them. There's several kinds of them. So one would be class exact match result, exact. More like I want a validation rule. So maybe validation rule is the. Maybe this is a new thing. I don't know where to put this yet. But like, I'm just gonna make a new directory from validators import star. So validate. How about check? How about from check import star? And there's going to be a bunch of classes. So new Python file. We'll call it check.py. Checker classes to check output in various ways. So the current one, def match lines. Output check. So class output check. There should be a class output check. Init. Yeah. Match lines check. So I'm going to call this, well, expected equals string. Bear with me here. I'm just thinking this through. Like, what do I actually want here? Each test is going to have a it's going to be, we want to say something like this. So match, how do you match test check answer actual. And then case so the results could be check with server, test passed, and we pass. That's actually the easiest case. The easiest case is the test pass. So I don't know what these things are yet, but like these are I'm just coming up with names. I'm making up names for cases. What happened there? Alt Shift, I think. Okay, so whatever test passed is, that's a pass. Okay, I'll say valid answer, valid output, check output. Case output diff pass. Then we say output mismatch. Right, then we want this. Oh, this is case. I think this is all I want for now, but I would expect this to improve. Or I would expect this to expand. Maybe this is a local test. Okay, so I think this is a tri-state kind of thing. We have either it passes valid output, we don't know the answer, so check it with the server, or the output is bad in some way, and then we're going to get back an object saying how it's bad and what we need to show. So it's more like res equals test check output actual. Match res code or res type, res result, I guess. That's kind of redundant, but it's one of those things. I'm going to put this in the model itself, and then say, what was it from? Enum import enum, result kind equals enum result kind, and it's okay, fail, unknown, pass fail unknown. Check with server, check with server, or ask server. Can you do that? Oh, you can. Okay, that's nice. I thought you had to pass in like a list for some reason. I don't know why I didn't. I think I've used this before, and I explicitly said like split at the end. Okay, runner. So result kind, check with server. So it should be pass. Check with server and result kind failed. Pass fail. Oh, sorry, dot fail. Is that what I said? Pass fail as server. Yes. Does it know if I say like, does it get mad at this? You'd think it would get mad. PyCharm ought to be able to do that. Okay, so it should be res kind. And then we should have a class called test result. So then we'll say res show error. And then we raise this test failure. Raise test failure. Res.message. I don't even know if we need that. Test failure. Oh, we only put the test name, so we don't even care that it's that. So we don't need in test failure. We don't need to track this stuff. I don't think. Yeah, we only print the test name. So we never print out that message that was there. So did we just say pass it? What's mad about here? Two blank lines found one. We're going to call this local res. How about just lres? Oops. And then remote res equals check the server config actual test. I think probably we should raise this whole thing. We actually should show that. So when we get to test failure, raise local res get error. And that way we'll be able to show it in the browser. It's not going to just print to the screen. Sometimes we're going to want to do that. So we should get it as like a string. And then once we have that, so now, yeah, now we do this and then match, same thing again, match remote res dot kind, same thing. So if it passes, we're going to do more than pass. So to do, we're going to actually save validation role. And then if it's a failure, then again, same thing. And if it's check with server, raise like internal error, like, you know, like stack error. What's the overflow error? Python stack overflow error. Recursion error. Yeah. That should never happen. Unless the server is misconfigured and doesn't have an answer either. What's wrong with this? Oh, it doesn't return anything. Where is it? So this needs to return a test result. Which does not exist. Yeah, so what does it need? It needs to have a result kind, yes. It needs to have a get error. These are not three classes. These are three these are three groups of classes. So ask server is one class, pass is one class, But fail could be any number, because the idea is that there could be lots of different kinds of failures. I guess it's just some kind of exception. It could be an assertion error. That's reasonable. Maybe that's it. We have a kind, and then possibly a test. This could be none. Equals none. And then we have a test failure and the assertion error. So this doesn't go there. And then new rule. I think a rule has to be a string, yeah. And I think this has to be a rule. But I'm not going to get rid of O lines yet because I think they're so rule string is empty. what else? Obviously, we have to fill in these two things, but I think so. Okay, just run through this. I think this all works. We run the local check. Based on the kind, we either pass. We can, that's not a PEP8 error. That's actually encouraged. If we fail, we raise the error. How about we save rule? Okay. And then, yeah, this is right. Get error. Check with the server. We're going to do here and get a new test result. Match remote res kind test result kind. All right, so then now we check the kind of that, and it's either pass or fail or check with server, in which case that would be a grievous error. This would be that we should prevent this from ever happening. Remote res get error is the same thing here. So same as this. So local res get error, raise it. So we're going to raise a test error, the test failure. This is one of the kinds of the test failures. So this is a specific issue. So whatever this is, so this is the only kind we have right now, but this is the, okay, so somehow we're going to have to, so somehow this remote res is going to be like a JSON blob. We're going to get a JSON blob back, and we have to convert it to like, you know, we have to say inside of it, it's going to say, oh, the type of failure is, it's either going to be pass or fail. And if it's pass, we're going to get a rule back. So, okay, so the JSON output is going to look like this. It's going to look like JSON test results. And they could be either pass. I probably want pass, and how about result? How about kind is pass? Sorry, kind is pass, and result. Oh, now we want a new rule, right? So then the new rule is some string. Or we have kind is fail, and the error is not just a string, but like a structured type. You know, some kind of kind, again, diff, like out mismatch or something like that. Hello, person watching. Mismatch, and then, you know, data is whatever the data is for that kind of thing. Data, you know, so we'll call it, you know, kind equals whatever, and then data equals whatever. And then it would never, ever, ever be anything but that, because the other option would be check with server, and then that would be an infinite loop from server. From server. All right. And then from this, we turn back into a test result. Which has a kind. There's the kind. It has an error, and it has a rule. So this is kind of a, I don't know, a silly way to do that, but you would have to, you could subclass it or whatever. I'm just going to use the, yeah, I'm going to do it like this. And the rule is a simple string that would represent something. It might be a JSON string or whatever. Oh, I don't know. It's going to have to be stored in the database as a simple string. But it could be a JSON string. I don't know. Because right now the only rule we have is this, match against the output. But again, that's going to change. So I don't know what the future rules will be like. But I would imagine they're going to be some kind of like maybe even assembly language on this virtual machine that I'm thinking of. So then it's protected and you can run arbitrary code. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so what do I actually do here? It's not the best time to ask this kind of question, but what do you think about Fast API and should I continue learning and mastering? I don't know anything about Fast API. I think, if you're going to learn something, then, learn it because you want to make something. And I don't know. I think I've used Fast API before, but it was more like somebody else set it up and I played around with it. I hardly remember anything about it. I guess my thought end is, do you need it? I liked. I'm looking at HTMX right now, so my whole front end here is in HTMX, and they have a interesting philosophy about this. So, when you click on this, it actually sends back HTML, and if you click on this, it sends back HTML. So the server backend is, their whole thought at the htmx.org site is that you should, forget about all this, JavaScript stuff if possible, and just send back, things with links in it. And I kind of like that idea, but I also want to send back JSON sometimes. So my thought was to make something new. I don't know if you're using Fast API to make something. Do that. Depends on what your needs are and what your goals are. I don't know. What do you think about it? Next rule. Check with server. Okay. Test failure. What am I doing here? So my goal is to run this, and I want to get some. I think this is completely broken now. I imagine it's. I say rogo test. What happens here? It's going to fail because it doesn't know what this. Oh, and name test failure is not defined. Okay, that's good. Test failure. Has no attribute check output. Right, that is the problem. So in the model, let's say check output. All right, we don't have one. So we can't search for it because it doesn't exist. Test description. Check output. Turns a test result. No, this is wrong. This is a bad guess on their part. Its part. This is true. Here's where so if self.olines equals is none, then we return test result kind check the server. Elif self.olines equals actual, then return pass, else return test result Yeah, HTMX is a trip. I mean, it's a cool idea, and then but if you look at the guy's Twitter, it's like it's a carnival going on. Complete nonsense. Twitter game is very crazy. There's all kinds of like memes, and apparently there's like he pretends it's an organization, and there's like thousands of anybody can be a CEO of that organization. But the underlying idea is very cool. At least in my very limited experience of using it. I kind of just tried it on a whim. All right, so but I previously had worked on my last job. I worked on an API, and we had a weird language for backend. We used K as our backend. We made our own. I was making an API, and it had a nice little front end where you could both browse it with HTML and also get back data. You could specify in the URL what kind of data you want, so whether you wanted HTML or you wanted raw data or JSON or binary or whatever. And HTMX doesn't actually demand that your backend is any particular way, but it encourages you to write chunks of HTML, and I want to extend that with the JSON chunks. And kind of the goal here, but I haven't quite gotten that far yet. All right, result kind fail. So if it's fail, and then we need to return a test failure. So this if it's actual, then pass, and then we're going to say error equals test. But it's a particular kind of test failure. Class diff. So we want a diff. I always mix this up. I want to show a diff, and I want to show. I'm trying to think which direction I want to show it in. I want to show the diff from the expected. Maybe it should be like patch required. Class line diff failure. That's a test failure. Actual, and this is not a. This is this. Actual. Expected equals action. And then now I can put all this code that does the diff over here. So where was that? The output mismatch. All right, so that's redundant information anyway. Although it does show the head versus the whatever. We don't need a test. We're going to have the expected for command and self dot expected. Print command. Or why is it more like line? Print line. And showing the body needs, that needs to be like print test dot body. Building a social media type API, but I thought that sticking to one framework would be the right move for a CS student. I don't know. I think that's reasonable. So, okay, so if the reason you're using Fast API is because you started to build something with it, then yeah, stick with it until you have a reason not to stick with it. Like if it's not meeting your needs and getting in your way, you have to ask yourself, well, is it because I don't know you? So some people have like a general, issue with like I don't know your skill level. So if you're struggling because you're just struggling with everything, then I would say stick with it. If you're struggling with it because you're struggling with that particular thing, giving the user the ability to choose the type of data he is receiving is a cool concept, but requires the user to have a pretty good knowledge about the web dev to understand. Well, it's for me. Like in this particular case, I have, the user is me. I'm writing a web, I'm writing a front end, and I'm writing this client that, so this is a command line client that talks to the. I don't know if you know what I'm doing, but like, we have a prompt that's teaching you how to write Tetris, and a bunch of tests that are teaching you how to write Tetris, and you're running them one at a time. So like, rogo show, right? So this, right, difflib. Sorry, difflib. Let me fix it. Import difflib. Import JSON. That should be up here. It should be. Oh, this is all. Okay. Sorry. Confusing myself. Anyway, so you write rogo show, and it shows you like this, and now you write a program that does this, that quits when you type the letter Q. So I'm writing a client that is using this API, but I also want a website to use this API. So the command line client and the needs it in like JSON format, because otherwise I have to parse HTML. Whereas in the browser, I want to be able to see the same thing and like explore the thing interactively. And actually, what it looked like in the thing I was talking about, in fact, I have it here. If you go to challenges, if you just refresh this, you get like a chunk. Oh, I screwed up the server too. Yeah, because of that same error. So reload it. So you get a chunk of HTML. Eventually, this is going to return like a nice templated thing and realize that you're getting a chunk. But if you say C colon JSON, then it gives you the same data in JSON. And so it could be as simple as that. You don't really have to know a lot of stuff about it. In fact, like Reddit does this too. Reddit.com r APLJK. It's the APLJ and K subreddit. And if you just say like .rss, you can get this as an RSS feed. I think it downloaded it. APLJK.rss. I bet if you said .json, it would do something. Yeah, there you go. So this is not like a terribly uncommon thing, but like you probably never had reason to do that. So that's the idea. But I have reason to do that. And also the idea, the other idea is like for a more API kind of thing, at least the thing we were doing, it was an extensible API. So we had a platform where you could build applications anyway. So you could add things to the API, and you could give yourself a little interface. And so this is just pulling down for Reddit, just pulling down data. But in my case, like you might be able to, it helps you like test the API. So it would be nice to have like a little front end, so you don't have to go write a program to test it. You can just like do that. I think I don't remember much about Fast API, but my understanding is that there was some component or some add-on where you could generate like documentation and a front end and like interactively do things that way. So that is similar in spirit, I guess. I don't really know much about it, but it's famous enough that I've heard the name and I've heard people use it. So in fact, they suggested that we use that, but again, we weren't using we had some kind of non-standard tools and non-standard backend, and also we were doing this extensible thing, so it wasn't like a fixed API. And likewise here. Although I think actually this one is going to be kind of fixed, but I'm hoping to make this into kind of a framework for like building other things. Swagger UI. So, yeah, that sounds familiar. All right, what am I doing? All right, so my thought was that this would fail because we didn't have that check thing. Oh, it passed. Okay, and now if I change this to the way I implemented this test is that I copied copy user bin echo to my program, because that outputs an empty line. But if I copy ls, do I not have ls? Yeah, ls.exe to my program, then this should fail. And so we can test another part. So has no attribute get error. Because it's not get error, it's just error. Zero of one test passes. So it failed. And so now we printed out the result. And now print e, or I say e.show error. E.show error. I should call this print error because it is printing it out, and I'm going to go away from printing. Oh, it didn't work. Test failure. Object has no print error. Oh, because it's not a test failure; it's a line diff failure. Line diff failure. Expected. Actual. Right. I think this check thing is going away. Expected, self-expected, self-actual. Self-expected, self-actual. And we did say expected and. Oh, wait, hang on. That was wrong. Actual is there, and expected is self highlines. Okay, let's pay attention here. Expected is self highlines. Actual is actual. We don't need this. This is nonsense. And then self actual and self expected. Right? Right. So then it shows Q, and the output was, this is what ls printed. It printed out these two things, and it needs to print that. So this is instead of diff. So patch required to fix. Patch. Here's patch your use how to patch your input, your output to pass the test. Join. So print expected. Oh, but the input was also self highlines. Maybe I'll always have the island. So I think that's not part of the test. That's part of this here. Print input given. Sorry, I see people talking, but I'll look in a second. Print line, and then print, and you'll see now why I'm making this to HTML. I'm moving this to HTML. Given input. So why I say input given? Where did that come from? Did I do this twice? Yes, this is actually wrong. So input given is Q, expected results is Q. It should not be Q. Expected results is not Q, but actual. All right, so actual equals actual. Sorry, I got to debug it and I'll read what we're talking about. Expected results Q. Why is that Q? Because past this. What is this kind of API? I don't know. It's just the HTMX site calls it hate OAS HTML as the engine of application state. Is what they call it. Or it's called, it's the notion is a RESTful API, but we call a lot of things RESTful when it's really just JSON. And so, the original book on REST is what it's called. Is the idea. Sam Ruby also wrote a book for O'Reilly called something about RESTful APIs. It was a pretty good book. Input given is Q. That is correct, but why is it saying expected results is Q? That makes no sense. Expected actual. Okay. Expected results is expected. But why is my expected? Why is the expected results Q? Oh, because the expected is the O lines. That's right. Is the output lines. The expected self output lines. Actual is actual, and then the input is already given somewhere else. Okay, so. All right, so input given is Q. Expected results nothing, and how to patch your output is to not print out those things because it's LS. So yeah, this is good. Okay, and then. All right, so let's copy back the file that passes it, which is echo. So if echo passes it, actually, there's a book, by the way, on the HTMX site, htmx.org. Somewhere on here, there's this book, Hypermedia Systems. You can get it for free. You can read it for free online. Somehow. Yeah, so click on Hypermedia Systems. You can read it online for free. I haven't read this yet, but it's on my to-read list. Like I said, I'm interested in this guy's thinking. Yeah, I haven't read it yet. But also the original REST paper and as I said, Sam Ruby's book. I knew Sam Ruby at the time. He wrote it, and that's why I don't remember the name of the book. All right, so this rogo. Okay, so let me just see what I changed here. Rogo. First of all, rogo checked. Am I even using this? I think I never wound up using it. I think I can. It's trash. No usage is found. Middle click. No use is found. And I'm just going to delete this file. Sure, usage should. Like I did import it somewhere. Usages. Check import here, and it's not used. It's grayed out, so I can delete it. And now we run, and it should be safe. And it's safe, and then I guess it just deleted it on its own. Okay. Yeah. No problem. Okay. My note to myself. Move this over into the documentation I'm writing. Oops. Why is this? Oh, main. So I need this. Where's this? This is in results from server. So, all right. So, right. That was a lot of refactoring. Didn't knock anything off this list. All right, or not refactoring, but a lot of building. cd rogo SQL init.sql. Now that is completely different. I was thinking of explicitly testing or recording whether you're in a particular state or not, but that didn't turn out to be necessary. So state would be building, or building, in which case you expect all the tests to expect one test to fail because you're building the solution to that test, or you're in the other mode where you've got all your tests passing and you're just changing things. But that is covered by breaking the commands into get the next test with rogo next and test all the tests you have with rogo test. All right, so state. Remove explicit state field from attempts. GD runner. Git GD git diff. Git add runner.py. GD app.py. That's on the server side. In the server, so app, do not send O lines with, or remove O lines. Remove O lines from the get next from next test for attempt. Next tests for attempt. And GD model. And I do expect, I think, yes, I will keep all of that. All that is good. Git add model. And git commit -m. And what am I doing here? What have I done? I have cached. How do I describe all this? I've created result kind and test result. Add result kind and test result to prep for server, for moving to prep move of validation to server. Kind of a long commit message, but whatever. Okay. So we're not actually talking to the server yet because we don't have this condition where the thing is none. But we can fix that by going into the database, SQLite 3 rogo rogo.std. Select star from tests. What? Oh, because this is some old version of the. I need to be in the temp directory. CD temp. This is the directory where I'm running, some test against LearnTrust locally. Rogo test. That test is passing, but it's passing because it knows that it's expecting no output. And what needs to happen is it needs to ask the server. It needs to pretend that it doesn't know anything about the output, because you don't decide you don't check your own papers. You have to ask the teacher to check your paper. The idea being that part of the idea is that based on your results, we might change the way the course goes or something. Might make different decisions about what the next test could be or whatever. So rogo. So we go into the SQLite database, rogo.std. rogo.std. Again, select star from tests. It should be one test. Yes, one test. Select update tests. Set output lines, O lines, equals null. Ah, that's no good. Integer. Oh, it's not even, it says it's an integer. Should be text. So how about we say drop table tests. Yes, paste that in. Select star from tests. Nothing's there. Rogo test should now say 0 or 0 of 0 tests passed. Rogo test. All 0 tests passed. And then we say rogo next, and it does give us the next. Oh, no, it won't, because the server thinks we have no test passed. I screwed things up. The server thinks we've. That's actually a bug. So like, what if the server thinks you have test passed, but your local rogo.std got wiped out. Now you have, now rogo next does the wrong thing. Now rogo.next does the wrong thing. And how do I fix that? I think what I do here for the time being is I go into the database here and I select star from progress. Oh. No, this is actually right. It doesn't. This is, okay, so this is do show is the problem. I have some bug in my code here. So client. I just assumed I didn't read what was on the screen. Do show arg. So where is that being used? Right here, where it doesn't have an argument. In fact, maybe what we should do, set argument to empty string, or none, or whatever. There we go. So we already have the next test. Why did it say we already have the next test? Because it had already got it. So it's in the database, and then it failed. So it was in the it successfully got it to the database, and then it failed because of that bug right there. So if I select star from tests, it's there, and now select O lines is null. Is null O lines, I think. Is null O lines from tests. No. Select O lines equals null from tests. Okay, SQLite null check. SQLite check null. Yeah, null is okay. So select O lines is null from tests. 0. I need to wipe this out. I told this thing. All right, so this is a perfect example. I want to, you're gone, but I want to modify, I want to look at what's going on the server. So rogo.tangentcode.com. I'm not logged in. But I should be able to inspect that. I paste that into a URL. But it's not there yet. So, okay, select star from what? What do I want? What is my problem? All lines is null here. Oh, different rows. That's why. Okay, so once again, delete from tests. All right, now this should work. So rogo next, fetch that. Definitely no. And so now if I go into the database, if I say rogo test now, I would expect it rogo. I would expect this to be null in the database, and now it's going to do something. Yeah. Okay. So none type has no split. So fetch challenge. Okay, so it did save a null to the database, and that means that in databases.py database, and then if O lines is not none, else none. If T O lines, if T O lines is not none, like this. Okay, so that should work. Oh, T. Oh. There we go. All right, check with server. So attribute error name for none. Result kind check with server. Okay, so okay. Weird. Model says ask servers. I wish the type checker in PyCharm would have caught that for me, but it did not. So it's doing the whole git. Runner needs to have the same thing. So runner somewhere in there says check with server. I don't really like the way this looks kind of ugly with all this capital letters in here. It's like a whole river of text. Whatever. Rogo test. Okay, so none type has no attribute kind. And so that's because check with server does nothing. So that's okay. So right. So what I did is I removed the validation rule from the system by making that field null, the output lines null, expected output lines. So now it's saying, okay, check with the server. So now what we need to do is we need to say client equals rogo client. And that knows how to find our server and knows who we are. And then, but no, this is not right. What do we want to do here? We want to say client. I don't think I've made anything yet that talks to this thing. So that's what I called it, something in this file though. Check output, I believe is what this is called. So local check output and then client check output. Check output self, and we're going to give it an attempt, a test, test name, and the actual output. So actual is a list of strings. Test name is a string. That's not really important. And the attempt is the code for the attempt, so the string. All right, so and again, same here. You must be logged in to check output. I guess, I don't know, I might have to do rethink this URL. So this is fine for now, but like, so the A for the attempt, and then I guess it should know, like you can ask it what the next test is, so it should know what the test is, but maybe even pass in the name, test name. I was thinking whether yeah, actually I like this. So we talk to the attempt rather than the challenge, because you could browse the list of tests underneath the challenge itself, but you wanted to know about your attempts because you might have like state, like variables that it's made decisions about what to ask you or what to challenge you with. That doesn't happen right now, but it could happen in the future. So a attempt check test name, and then we're going to say the O lines was actual. And I would just go ahead and pass this as one single string. In fact, I'll even use the word actual for output. I'm kind of an actual what, but everywhere I use it, I use it for actual output, expected output versus actual output. All right, so then but actually we want to say like actually we want test result from JSON. JS equals this. So let's say and then return test result from JSON JSN. And now it's going to get mad because I didn't. Okay. So it doesn't know where test result is, so let's import that. Import this name. That is a common name in unit testing framework. From .model import test result. And from JSON. So This would be a class method, because it's a constructor from def from, I guess really a static method. Doesn't do anything with the class. From JSON, what do we say? JSON is a string. See if this works. Oh, weird. Kind equals result kind. Data.kind. Is that how you do it? I have a Python shell where I have this. You say result kind ask server. Oh, nice. Okay, so that actually works. Cool. Python enum module. Okay, so this is going to be kind. It's kind. Oops, kind with a lowercase k. Actually, we don't know what field we're going to fill in. So equals kind, and then res. So if kind equals result kind fail, then we got to parse the error. Parse the error, and or actually we can match this. Right? So match res.kind case result kind fail. Let's say pass for now. Case result kind ask server. Again, raise recursion error. And then case result kind pass to do parse the new rule. All right, so we should have a thing called rule. So I guess really what we say is res dot o lines. Res is a test result. So test result this is a test result, so we put it in quotes. So we say res dot rule equals validation rule, test rule, validation rule from JSON data rule. Yeah, so we don't know what that is, so we have to make something up here. So class, except for it can just be a string, right? The rule is just a string, so let's just make it. Let's just keep it that way. And I guess really this is the same kind of thing. The error is just the, because here we could have different kinds of things. So match how would we say error equals res error. This is not data kind. This is, oh yeah, sorry. It is data. So if it's a failure, we'll have an error, and then what we want to say is match error dot the first thing of the error. So it's going to be a tuple that says so. Actually, I think even then, no, I said it was going to be a dictionary. So error kind. What do I say? Yeah, so it's going to be a kind. And I think rule is also going to be a kind. And the kind here is going to be diff. And then the data is going to be something else. Data. So we're going to follow this pattern. So they both have the same structure, just whatever. One's a rule, one's an error. Yeah, match error kind. Case diff. Error data. Case. Anything else? Phrase not implemented. Yeah, unknown error. Case result kind. Oops. Right, so if we get an ask server, that's a recursion error. If we get a fail, we do this, and if we get a pass, then rule equals data rule. Res kind equals a rule.kind. No. Case rule match rule kind, and then we would expect it to be whole lines. I think diff is fine. Like, you know, so diff would be fine. And then we would say res.rule equals line diff validator rule data. That makes sense. Rule kind. So then we have to create this, and then that's it. And then we return res, and then we're done. So just like we have failures, right? Okay, so just like we have failures, we're going to have a validator. Class validator. Pass, and then class line diff validator is a type of validator. I should call it a rule, right? Line diff rule. Validation rule. Line diff rule. And a validation rule line diff rule rule data, and so it needs to take a argument. our expected split dash n. Or actually, I kind of like the idea of keeping it like this. Like we always pass in that, and then here we split it here. Maybe even split it, maybe even get it back as data. And in the app, we just send the data. So I say like lines, line diff roll data, and then so the app will send back. Have I written? I haven't written this yet. Have I? Actually strip all lines. I have written it, so check output is where this needs to be. And I said join actual. Oh, this is wrong. Oh, this is correct. This is the client, right? So yes, it's in the app that I'm changing. I haven't made any changes to the app. The GD database.py. Read.py fix handle the lines being null. Database.py. Driver fix bug with missing bug. So I need to add this GA interactively because I want to only check in this. Patch. How about, sorry. No, do not stage this hunk. No, do not stage this hunk. Yes, stage that hunk. Quit. And so then that was model. So GD client, let's specify changing the client. That's coming in a minute. GD SQL, init.sql. remove the make O lines. Allow null O lines in white. Well, that probably all could have been one chunk. So GD cached, this is all one thing. The runner actually doesn't need this line yet. Fix misnamed enum match. Check with asks over. And then GD client and GD model is what I'm working on right now. All right. This does nothing. Oh, what? GD. All right, so this is okay. So run test. Local check output. So in local check output in the runner, say remote res, right? Remote res is check with server, and that's why this doesn't work. So we'll say return client, and what's GD client? Check output fig.attempt test.name and actual. The actual is a strings. Config is a config, and the test is test. Do I even need this function? It's like it's just calling that. I don't think I need it. And we'll say client check output config dot attempt is a string, and actual is and then the test name is test.name and actual. So we don't need check with server. Rule is a validation rule. Validation. I'm just say import model down here. This is getting kind of crazy. Import model. So it's never used. And validation rule. test is the M test description. Test description. That way we can test it. That way we can use the validation rules. Okay, so rogo test. All right, so we got an error trying to decode something. That usually means there's an error on the server side. It is. Okay, so there's some parse error that caused it to fail. Probably saved it mid typo or whatever. But it's still failing. So when we check this, check io.q, what happens? Are we getting a 404 error? Is that what's the problem? Oh, it doesn't say what kind of error it is. All right, so what happens in the app? What does it say? Oops. I need it right now. Close all the others. Close other tabs and then open up app. In the client, we're calling check, and I don't think there is a So attempt check test name. So there just isn't anything. It should say that. Like it should say something about this. Check test for attempt. Check test for attempt. Code and test. So test name. Be a test underscore name. And what do we put in here? So sorry. Right, and this is where we do that. Let me copy that notion here. So. Hmm. So I think t equals db.query select star it's the same thing. We got to do like a complicated thing. Get next test for code. So db, we need like get test for attempt. And then we'll say code is, or attempt, you know, as a string, and then test name. Test name. Oh, I'm confusing calling a function with finding a function. All right, so we're gonna I mean, it's the same kind of thing. So like, you know, equal 3. I should do it over here. So, okay, so here's the code. Select star from attempts A, where a.code is equal to this, but I don't want, I want the tests t.star from attempts A tests t, where a code is this, and a.chid is equal to the challenge ID is equal to the test challenge ID, challenge ID chid, and the t.name is io.q. Really, we only need the rule from this. But there is no thing called rule. It's called O-lines right now. Okay, so if we go back to main, go back. Oh, yeah. Try that again. We want to copy this to the local machine. All right, so t equals db.query. We'll say rows equals db.query. Boom. So where test is equal to, and instead of this, we're going to say question mark. And so we pass in the code, and then we pass in the test name. And t name equals this. And we'll actually put this on the bottom. Actually, If not rows, return unknown test or attempt. 4. Else, so then we're still here. So rows, so we'll say t equals rows 0. That should be unique. Assume that's unique. Check that it's unique, but chid name should be unique. That's not currently enforced, but that should be the case. And now we're guaranteed that it's only one row. Okay. And so we need to run this logic. So we need actual test description. But all we really need is the O lines. So we can just say test description. It's kind of an easy way to do it, but test t equals test description. And so we're going to say m.test description, just create a blank one, and we're going to say O lines equals row 0. And then check output actual, and we don't have actual yet. So actual equals await port request again. To do, we need to do validate date current user owns the attempt. So we'll pretend we're doing that. Was it bad request? What's bad request? HTTP bad request error? 400 bad request. Attempt field post. Sorry, no actual field. 0. O lines split in, okay. Mm-hmm. All right, so that gives us a test result. Test result needs to have the two data. Add method to test result. Return raw data that's for JSON serials. Exactly. Pass fail, pass server, lower. Res if self kind. This needs to be two data as well. Right? So the errors need to have data. Case fail. Case pass. Yep. Okay. So that's going to return the thing to data. So now we got to return this. PyCharm just doesn't understand these things. To data. Raise not implemented error. Def to data self. And data equals self expected. That's what I want. From data. Yep. Yeah, from JSON. Yeah, exactly. Yes. This is unimplemented. Okay. And then where else is this? Middle click to find out where it is in the current. Right here. So this is actually a validation rule. But we're not really using this yet, right? So I guess so right now we have this data, and so we need to fake this. We need to say property, and so we say rule self. So when we get the rule, we're going to get it's always going to be an so if self lines is none, return none, else return line diff rule self lines. Yes, that's right. So actually we can say return none if self else. Well, it's eventually going to be different, right? So this would be where we no eventually we'll just have like a thing here, and so we'll when we pull this from the database, we will parse the rule as a string. So if we set it as a string or something, it'll I don't know. All right, let's just find out. All right, what's happening here? I go too long without running a test, and I don't know what's going on here. Oh, so we just lost our server. We are passing there. So let's see what happened on the server side. Data. Result, test result are view data. We didn't even get this far. code check. In here. Why is that? Okay. It's not. Oh, okay. It did say in here. I don't know why it's printing twice. Maybe that's the input and the output. Oh, it's a 400 error. Is that what it's saying? All right, so try again. Rows is O lines is empty. Okay. Actual is actual. Actual is none. Okay, so I did not post the actual. Oh, JSON equals data, so I need to ask for JSON. I can't believe it. Report.request args form. Oh, okay. I guess I never used JSON before. Self error to data does not exist. So line failure has no attribute to data. We can't. Okay, so test result from JSON, but we don't want from JSON. We want from data. So that's in client.py. We're calling from JSON. So from data res. Type object test result has nothing from data. Okay, from data, but that's okay because model we go to test result from data. key error fail. Data kind. Why did I make it lowercase? Lower. No reason. Fail. Ask server. I think I caught that in a bad moment. This indices must be integers or slices, not string. Match error. Where is that coming from? Check output, config attempt test. From data. Model.py. Line 67. Okay, let's print out the data here. Print data. So the error kind is a diff, and the data is that. Hmm. Is that what I want to send back, or do I want to send the... I think in from data, we're going to say from data here. And we're only going to contain the diff. Or do we also contain the actual? Do I need the actual? It doesn't make sense to send it back that way. So this would be a static method. And I think we say self.diff is equal to, and then this. But it's not self. So this is equal to line diff failure dot new, and then I think we don't need this. I don't think we keep these at all. I think we keep actual and expected, and we don't keep these around. And then self diff or this diff equals data, and then return this. So we create it new without calling the constructor. And self diff, right? And that's what I think. But we have to actually say from. So this is in model. From data, we say from data. Oh, no, hang on. From data. I caught it in data. From data. Get rid of self. Not enough arguments. How about if actual is none, diff or expected. If actual is none, self diff equals diff or expected. Else, self diff equals differ of actual or expected or diff or expected. Would you put it there? Right. Oh, I see. If assert diff is none or an actual is or diff is not none or expected is none and actual is not none. Actually, this is messy, right? Put it like here. Right. We're just going to contain. You're just going to keep the diff in here, or from yeah. This is a much cleaner way to do it. So then what we're going to say, yeah, perfect. There we go. That's exactly it. So then we don't even need to say we don't need this. All right, but I've lost track of where I need to change that, make that change. Okay, so the problem is over here and this side. No, yeah, line diff failure. Line diff failure in init got an unexpected keyword argument in model.py 121. 121. Line diff failure from lines. Actual equals actual. And error equals E. I should call that person back in a minute. Actually, do one from data. And on line 77 of model.py. Fix that somewhere. 77. Line diff failure. And diff is error.data. Yeah, I actually had this removed from here A lot of information. But this is not correct. This is a test failure I saw before. This is why I introduced a thing called chomp. All right, so now where am I doing that? In the runner itself. Where is, I gotta find the word olines. Olines.split. Nothing found. Ah, right here. This needs to be chomp. db.chomp. And what this does is it strips out the last new line. All right, so what happened? Why is this fail? Actual. JSON dump s actual, so we can see the structure of it. JSON. Just actual is a single empty line. Because the actual, this is JSON data, so we just want to, we don't need to do this. Don't do this here. Self rule to data, so it passed. Okay, so yeah, right, that's what I expected. The app should pass or to data. Check output. And rule is now going to be rule equals rule. Rule is equal to line diff rule self o lines. Yes, that's right. To do save rule to DB. Okay, so we got something back that says kind is passed, rule equals data, kind equals lines, and the data is an empty list. That's what we want. right, so wherever it says save rule to DB, I gotta find that string. Save rule to DB. Yep, that's right here. There we go. That means that this will keep failing. Or keep passing with the same thing. All right, so I'm going to check this in here because this is like a good stopping point. Because this is everything is working, but now we just have to save on both the server and the client the fact that we've passed this test. And once we do that, save the rule and then save the fact that the rule passed, and then that's it. So I think this is good. So this so what would I call everything I've done up to this point? So let's see. You know what? Actually, I'm going to go ahead and just end this here, and I'm going to go commit this file offline. This is already long enough, and there's no point like dragging it out, doing busy work here. All right. So thanks for watching, and I will come back later today or tomorrow, and I'm going to do another pass with just saving this data, and I think we're done. I think once I do that, well, we still need, then you can do everything client side, and then the question would be having it update the server and show you in real time from the browser like the changes and the status, and that'll be a fun trip too. But this is the like at least all the data is going to be syncing here, syncing up. Anyway, so yeah, one last push for this, and then I guess. Then we move on to the server and then actually running the test. So hopefully things will pick up here soon. Talk to you later, and I will see you.